My name's Matt Southall. I'm the Paediatric Therapies and Special Needs Nursing Service Manager for Central Cheshire Integrated Care Partnership, and I've got Debbie sat alongside me, who's our Advanced Paediatric Nurse Practitioner in the community. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to give you a bit of background around CCICP and who we are, because we are a bit of a unique collaboration, really. Our community services were chupied over from one trust to another in 2016, so we've been an organisation for 4 years now. So essentially what we do is we bring together 3 organisations, and our aim is ultimately to transform, develop and deliver community healthcare services focused on delivering high quality, safe care in the right place at the right time and bring that care closer to home, and that's what we're all about. As I mentioned, we're a unique collab between CWP, which is Cheshire World Partnership, Mid Cheshire Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust, and a GP Alliance as well. And we cover roughly around 29 local GP practices, and we formed 5 care communities, and our paediatric services are a standalone specialist service, who are the teams that I look after. Next slide, please. So just to give you a bit of an insight in terms of who we are, there's a couple of different teams that are represented here from our special school nursing teams that are based within 2 of the special schools in the area. We've got Debbie in the top right, who's with me today. We've got our physio team, who work closely alongside our OT team, and we've also got a large speech and language therapy team as well, and a continuing care team as well. That form part of our organisation. So these are our paediatric services that we're really, really proud of, and these are the guys that have been very proactive in implementing and putting into force the SOP that we've developed. Next slide, please. So just a bit of background again in regards to what is why we targeted sepsis, and particularly looking at the unwell child. There's obviously an increasing prevalence of sepsis within paediatric patients, and it might well be that, and I think we've discussed this with staff, that the prevalence of sepsis has always been there, as have unwell children, and maybe we just haven't had the awareness from a staff perspective of picking that up early. Hopefully now we have. The patient safety alert identified that the need for a paediatric screening and action tool to ensure possible sepsis is identified early. And while the focus on that might be more in an acute setting, what we wanted to do was really develop that within the community to, again, really promote early recognition. We backed that up with the NICE guidance NG51, which then supplemented the work that we were doing as well. And previously, we've not had anything in place from a community perspective as well. So we had some CQC visits that highlighted that this wasn't there. We wanted to respond to that and obviously respond in the right way as well. So that was why we were targeting sepsis and particularly unwell children. Next slide, please. The importance of staff awareness, I mean, goes without saying principally. As I mentioned previously, we've not had anything like this in the community settings before, and so one thing we wanted to do, and the whole idea of the programme, was to increase staff awareness, not to make them experts, but just heighten that awareness that sepsis and unwell children are something that should start to flag in your mind if they are seeing them within clinical settings. Sepsis is obviously a time-critical medical emergency, and it's obviously a response, the body's response to infection. But what we have found is that obviously if it is treated quickly, then it can lead to fairly basic intervention and cost-effective therapies, rather than being costly to the NHS if ignored. And we've just obviously put some figures on there at the bottom in regards to mortality rate for sepsis in children, which is estimated to be between 10 and 15%. So we can appreciate why the focus was there. Next slide, please. So the development of our SOP was fundamentally done by myself, Debbie, and we had a quality lead who was currently employed by the trust that helped to put us together. What we did was we used the UK Sepsis Trust guidance, which basically enabled us to implement 3 key pathways that they'd highlighted, and I'll share them with you later on. What we did as a community trust was we invested greater than £10,000 in purchasing thermometers for all community-based paediatric staff to enable part of that screening process. So a significant investment from the trust and from the community in order to ensure that we all had our basic tools to be able to deliver this screening tool at its most effective. We also rolled out a training programme to all paediatric staff within the community settings. Just fairly straightforward in regards to following the pathways, what the pathways involved, how to follow them, what to do, and also in regards to operating the thermometers and how to use them, etc. Next slide, please. What we also did was that we developed clinic boxes within our clinic settings across the CCICP footprint as well, and they were stationed within those clinic settings. So within those boxes we have a thermometer, the pathways that are laminated for easy access, and we also have little action cards at the bottom as well that staff can hand out to patients or parents if they've got particular concerns, or maybe if we are not particularly suspecting sepsis at the time, but may have some thoughts that things might develop on later on, and just to again highlight those concerns to parents so that they're aware of what the key signs and symptoms might be. We just got some pictures there of what they look like within clinical settings. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we're not expecting our staff to be experts in this field by any way, shape or form. We wanted to increase awareness of potential symptoms and urgency and how to deal with them. So if we have got a concern in regards to those symptoms, making sure that forward referral was then done, 999 if needed, liaison with GPs, etc., etc. Checking temperatures is standard practice, unfortunately, in the moment with COVID-19, but what it has done is it's obviously made sure that our staff are very proficient at doing that, and are very au fait with what is normal, what's not normal, what's abnormal, etc. And we've also produced some standardized advice with no red flags, so the cards that we provided give us some standardized advice on how to do that as well. As I mentioned, not a specialist. Okay, next slide, please. So probably a little bit small for everyone to see clearly, but these are some of the pathways that we've got. So our first pathway is for children under 5 years of age. It starts in the top left and basically is an algorithm to follow down. So it asks for key signs and symptoms, and if you answer a yes for any of those, the box at the bottom is the red flag area that would then lead to what they're classifying as red flag sepsis. So the UK Sepsis Trust flags it up as red flag sepsis, and that is then for onward referral 999. And we're encouraging staff to use an SBAR tool to report back to the paramedics and the individuals that are answering the call. If they answer no in any particular stage, then it may then lead to either a low risk of sepsis, so we're not thinking that might be going on at the time, or potentially an amber flag. If there's an amber flag present, then again there's an algorithm to following on from that, and if no, then we can then effectively again provide that standardized advice that we could give to parents just to highlight the concerns. So the pathways are fairly similar. There's some symptoms that are in the under 5 years of age that aren't in the 5 to 11, and then again in the 12 plus, which is just on the next slide, if we could skip that one over. So the 12 plus one is 12 to 19, which covers our age range that we cover as paediatric services, but we'll also then go beyond into adult services as well. So this is what the Sepsis Trust are sort of highlighting. What are our next steps then in regards to the project? COVID, as with everyone that sort of mentioned it, has disrupted our plans in regards to sort of training and annual training and how we would deliver that training. However, what it has done is presented us with an opportunity to expand our offer. So myself and Deb currently at the moment are looking at that annual training offer, developing something that we can then offer virtually that isn't impacting significantly on clinical time, that we can roll out to staff and roll out on a significant number. So that will provide us with a real good solid base. So we're in the process of doing that at the moment. What we're also looking at doing is potentially developing an e-learning package instead of some face-to-face training or some virtual training. Apologies for the noise. So that we can then again document competencies of staff, etc., on an easier way, and they can manage that in their own time rather than having to fit in around delivering time slots, etc., etc. Deb is also helping to lead on sepsis for CCICP and is linking in with the Acute Trust as well. And one thing that we have tried to do with this is expand beyond the realms of CCICP, so make GPs aware that this is what we're doing, and make the Acute Trust aware that this is what we're doing, so that everyone's au fait with it. And I think we're pretty much there.